Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, a city in search of its story. We explore why more than 200 years after its founding, Jacksonville is still struggling to identify a shared civic identity. Later in the program, keeping holiday cheer afloat and sobriety intact during a season of high-pressure festivity. But first, a local civic group is in search of an answer to an intractable problem. Who or what is Jacksonville? The search for identity is being led by the Jacksonville Civic Council, and here to discuss it is Will Ketchum, the group's research committee co-chair. Good morning, Will.
Good morning, Ann.
We're also joined by Dennis Whittle, the Civic Council's president and CEO. Dennis, good morning.
Good morning, Ann.
So a distinct question, as we said, has sort of eluded the city of Jacksonville, and that is, claiming an identity. The city has had a couple of monikers that it perhaps doesn't want to claim. It's been called a city of renderings. It's been known as the murder capital. Neither of those particularly marketable. Tell us what is behind this campaign that the Civic Council is doing.
Well, and the Civic Council is devoted to helping Jacksonville realize its potential and become a world-class destination of choice for businesses, for families and individuals, and for graduates. And that means not only newcomers, but most importantly, residents of Jacksonville. And we're growing like crazy. Over 30,000 people have moved here in the last 2 years. I think that's close to 50 people a day have been moving here. So we're growing very rapidly. And that growth can shape us, or we can shape it. So the Civic Council is trying to lead an effort so that we make sure that we're the masters of our own destiny.
Remind us, for folks who don't know, what is the Civic Council?
So the Civic Council is a group of 100 CEOs in town who are devoted to making the city a world-class place. So they're very successful business leaders who care deeply about the city and really want it to be a place of opportunity for everyone.
If you had to say, distinguish the Civic Council and its mission from something like the Chamber of Commerce, which is also a group of business leaders that would say, I think, probably something similar. We're here to make the city better, more prosperous. How are you different?
Well, and we work very closely with the Chamber. I'd say there's two differences. One is we have a little bit of a broader remit. We don't focus on business networking. Our main goal is not to bring in businesses or focus on business development of our members. Our main goal is to make the city as a whole a better place. So that's number one. Number two, we're only CEOs. Only CEOs are allowed to be members of the Civic Council. So those are two differences.
Okay.
But we work very closely together.
So, Will, when we're talking about this unformed narrative, which is, I think, how you all are describing it, the Civic Council says that this is an emerging built environment that we have here in Jacksonville, but one that has left our reputation vague, impeding our potential. Explain, why is that an impediment, not having a unifying narrative?
Yeah, well, by all accounts, this community is growing. So it's a fair argument to say, what's the problem here? There's really no problem. We're growing. We're, increasing incomes. We have work to do in all the areas of the city, but things are looking pretty good compared to markets up north, for instance. The critical need here is that we can do better. So I think it's about reaching our potential. And also, as we look closer to ourselves, it's an opportunity to have a strong sense of ourselves. And I think everyone wants to be a part of a community where they have a good sense of that. What do we stand for? What are we about here in Jacksonville? So a lot of this effort is inward facing. It's not simply how do we market ourselves to the world. We're growing without that effort. So I think we feel there's an opportunity to get a stronger sense of ourselves.
Is there a sense that somehow instills pride? I mean, what is the value in having kind of a clear self-definition?
Yeah, I think that pride, engagement, investment in your community comes from a strong sense of this is what we're about and this is what we stand for. Importantly, we also think that if we can define our DNA, which is way upstream of any sort of slogan or branding, we can define what we're about, what drives us, what we value, that could also shape how we build and develop our community. Our built environment historically has not matched the beauty and power of our natural environment. So this process is also about that because we know that cities build identity not only around a shared narrative or a perpetuated narrative, but also their built environment, their natural environment, and also just sort of owned distinctions that carry on. Those have been harder to find here in Jacksonville. They've been elusive for some reason, and we think it's time to be intentional about building that story.
And so you bring up, maybe some contradictions, and you're putting it nicely, in terms of the built environment perhaps not being necessarily in line with sort of the beauty of the natural environment. And I think that that points up one disparity in the city, which is sort of this sprawl versus natural preserved beauty, because there are some extraordinarily beautiful natural places in Jacksonville. And then there's a lot of, kind of unappealing stretches that have been heavily built and perhaps without a lot of regard for aesthetics or the natural environment.
Right.
The city has a lot of contradictions. Um, and that is really just one of them. But I wonder if there is some thread of a narrative in that very fact.
Uh, the through lines are difficult to find if we go all the way back to 1822. So it's a fair point. Our story has had fits and starts. It has meandered. It's been interrupted by things that couldn't sustain themselves. For instance, our winter tourism in the late 1800s, the railroads took it south. The Great Fire really changed the fabric, was also a hugely significant event and spawned a real golden age for Jacksonville in terms of urban planning.
Hmm.
Then the war, depression came and sort of interrupted progress. We came back together in mid-century and never quite achieved a connected sense of urban planning and therefore building that narrative. So it's a story that has meandered all the way back to being named for a public figure who really had no connection to this region. So that sort of set the tone for a vague identity. And we have to be authentic in how we approach this. So we're not going to invent something about Jacksonville. We believe the answer is already there. We just got to bring it to the surface. And that's what this process is about. And we want to hear from the residents of this community because it's their city. So.
If you're just joining us, we are talking about Jacksonville's identity or lack thereof. If you have an idea about how this city is or should be defined, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call on air at 904-549-2937 or go to firstcoastconnect.org and submit comments or find all the ways that you can connect with us. To your point, Will, we have an email from Sondi, and she says we should rename Jacksonville to Jax, if not officially, then in all advertising and public presentations. It's unique, easier, more modern, and catchy. And perhaps for some, Will would sort of address the fact that the moniker is for someone that not only never came to Jacksonville, Andrew Jackson, but also is a highly divisive figure in terms of his legacy of, racial abuses.
Yeah, so the JAX idea to your emailer is a good one. I don't know that we would recommend changing the name of the city, but you can already see that JAX finds its way into, all the ways that we market this place and talk about it locally, including, our airport monogram, right?
Yeah.
JAX. So these are elements of branding today that ask us to be more concise with how we present things, and JAX is a good idea. Again, we're not here to say let's change the name of the city. That's behind us. We're looking forward. There are folks who have said, "Boy, we should have named ourselves St. John's or Mayport," and maybe those names would be more.
Or even stuck with Calford, right?
Yeah, those are names that probably would be more suggestive of our amazing natural assets.
Mhm.
But that's water under the bridge. So we're moving forward, and I appreciate that comment. But that's probably not in our purview to talk about renaming the city.
Yeah. So, Dennis, what is in your purview? We mentioned that there's a survey. We have a link to it on our website. You all have it on your website. What is the strategy behind doing a community survey? How have you approached formulating the questions?
So I You asked about the differences in the city and the contradictions. I think that's a source of great richness for the city. It's a city of mosaics. It's a city of difference. It's a city where you can be on the beach and in 15 minutes be on the river. You can you can be in rural areas or downtown. So I think our challenge and the opportunity is really to forge an identity for ourselves, not make it up, as Will said, but forge it from the ingredients we have. And Ann, I moved here about 7 years ago, and somebody told me, Dennis, this is a town with low self-esteem. And I looked around and I said, this city has amazing ingredients. And to me, it felt like going into a restaurant where there's amazing ingredients in the cupboards and in the fridge. And what we need to do is bring all those ingredients together and make a great meal with them.
Hmm.
So I think that that's the strategy here, is to make sure that we take stock of all the ingredients from all around the city, whether it be the beaches, from the beaches to Baldwin, and find a way to combine those together to forge an identity for ourselves.
And so I'm going to steer you back to sort of like the nature of the questions or whatever research or science exists about how to create a survey like this. The questions that you ask people, why you're asking for community involvement.
Well, one thing that we know is if you try to create a campaign from the top down, from 100 CEOs, you'll never capture the richness of the city or the lived reality of the city. And for great cities to thrive, everyone needs to have a sense of belonging, of identity, of community, and of pride. And so the key strategy here is to make sure everyone sees a little piece of themselves in the DNA that we forge for the city. It's very important.
We've got a call from Eugene on the north side. Good morning, Eugene. Go ahead.
Good morning to the staff and the host. I got a comment. I'm not a native of Jacksonville, but I've been here quite some time, probably 25 plus years. And there was a old statement that said, if you don't like what's going on here, you can leave and go back where you come from. So hopefully that's out of the spirit of the direction of this team. And secondly, I think we need to kind of focus on the change of leadership. We need to bring our youth in, and some of the pillars and people that's been in charge and running things forever need to kind of step back and be more a mentor to those folks. But in order for the city to grow and be all that it can be, I think we need to change leadership. And I'll take your comments off the air.
Thanks, Eugene. I mean, obviously, you all are not necessarily advancing a political overhaul of any kind. You're really trying to, I guess, find some indelible markers of the city's life. But do you think that do you see a need for the city to refashion itself in terms of having a younger leadership demographic and just more youth involvement?
100%. I'll say two things in response to the caller. First, the world is changing dramatically. And if you, Ann, or me, or Will thinks we know what the city should be like in 20 years, we're crazy. We really have to look to the youth to figure out, A, what's happening in the world, and B, what kind of city do they want to live in? And I think many of us want our kids to either stay here or at least come back after a couple of years away. And if we fashion the city in a way that pleases us, that's not going to be a city that they come to. The second thing I'll say is we need to change I'm very unhappy to hear what the caller said about if you don't like it, leave. We need to create a situation where if you don't like it, let's make it different. Let's improve it. So the Civic Council, and part of this work is to try to create a way where if people have ideas, that they can focus on the assets and not on the deficits of the city. And we see our job as helping them make those ideas a reality, or at least creating the situation where they have the opportunity to turn good ideas into not just renderings, but reality on the ground.
Sure. Did you want to add to that, Will?
Well, I'll add that we had some focus groups this fall, and our young people were fantastic. And we heard them, and they had great comments. They love it here. They have some agitation about, can we be better? How can we be better? But they're all in, and we've got to nurture that. And I would also say that this survey, we'd love to talk about, we need more younger people to take it. So if those listeners who might know young adults or even high school kids, please share that survey with them, because we want to hear from the young people.
I want to ask you about a lack of identity versus like a really firm identity and, the benefits of and pitfalls of both. I mean, you think about a city like Detroit, which has a very strong reputation for Motown, but also for, a enormous failing of its central economy, right? And that is attached to Detroit in a really sticky way. There's places like Las Vegas or Orlando that are just almost so defined by the one chief feature that you almost can't break through. If there's like an arts or a culture, that it's Disney, right? Or it's casinos. It's you kind of can't escape. Is it better to have no identity or to have an unformed identity than to have a really fixed identity that is less flexible?
I, I think that there is an alternative. First, Detroit has had an incredible renaissance. And if you haven't been to Detroit, if any of our listeners or viewers haven't been to Detroit recently, it's incredible. The city was founded on the automotive industry, which collapsed, and the city collapsed, and now it's back. It's very vibrant. Before we went on air, and we were talking about Washington, D.C., which went through the same renaissance. So cities can go through a renaissance after going down. Some cities will have a single identity around one thing. Jacksonville will not have that. I just got back from New York, where New York has many boroughs with many very distinct flavors. Even within the boroughs, there's distinct flavors. So I think we need to push towards something like that for Jacksonville, where different neighborhoods have very distinct characters, and people feel like they're from Murray Hill or from the North Side or from the beaches, but they also feel like they're from Jacksonville. And some cities have achieved that. I think we need to push in that direction. Will, what do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things we're hearing from our respondents out in the community is they relate to our expansive geography and our diverse and varied waterways. And that's what's given rise to all these different neighborhoods. So there's something interesting there that we want to build on, and that sort of diversity of neighborhoods. So agree wholeheartedly. We use the sort of softball examples of Charleston and New Orleans as places that have strong identities. You can just say the word and you have a picture in your mind. I think we'd like to be at least halfway there. But yes, you don't want to be infamous for the wrong thing. But we have work to do, and we think there's a story here that is equally compelling to those places. And we have now the benefit of time to sort of bring it along together as a community.
We've got a call from Linda in Orange Park. Good morning, Linda. Go ahead.
How are you?
Wonderful.
I am a native of Jacksonville. I was born here. I will not live here. I live in Orange Park, but I think, and I've seen, all of these things, Bold New City and all of that stuff. But until there is an honest reckoning about the racist culture of the city, that it's not going to progress. Because I teach certification classes, and within an hour, I know who went to school in Jacksonville because they can't read. So that needs to be dealt with, because I'm all over the city. I teach classes all over the city. And when I head east to toward the beaches, and then I go back to the north side where I grew up, it looks like two distinct different places. And until everyone can participate, the city will not grow.
Thanks, Linda. Dennis, your thoughts?
One thing our members feel incredibly strongly about is that everybody in Jacksonville should have an equal opportunity for a good education, for health, and for employment. And so that is key to our strategy, and it's key to our values. We are making progress. And I'll first say, just to the caller, that we have to stare the past straight in the face, unflinchingly, and decide to do better. That is very, very important. And it's also important to focus on the future. And our school system this year was given a grade of A for the first time in many years. And I think we need to celebrate some of these incremental improvements. We have a long way to go in education and in health and in many other areas. But we are making progress, and we need to double down on that progress without denying the unfairness that still exists in parts of the city.
We do have a couple related comments. Mike on Facebook saying Jack still has Confederate monuments, markers, et cetera, that Mayor Curry promised to be removed and Mayor Deegan hasn't finished. It's difficult to have a positive identity when we haven't confronted our past. Would the Civic Council be willing to advocate for a comprehensive process to review all the vestiges of white supremacy that still exist in Jack's? And I just want to add to that before you answer an email from Hudson saying we absolutely should rename the city. Jackson is an albatross. The most important feature of the city is the river. Maybe if she were our namesake, we'd take better care of her. Will.
Well, I mentioned St. John's as a name and Mayport. I think that the cost to rename a city is so substantial, and I think there'd be opposing points of view that would make that a difficult process.
Yeah. An email from Erica saying Jacksonville has a lot of natural beauty, a variety of artists, art, music, and more, and a bit of grit. We aren't perfectly polished on the outside. I've seen other cities like Austin, Texas, and Knoxville, Tennessee pull off this objective. That may be something to put a spotlight on. And so, are there cities that you are trying to emulate? Has a city successfully done what you're looking to do? Taken an unformed image and then collectively created sort of a shared narrative?
Well, the caller mentioned Austin, Texas, and many of us grew up watching Austin City Limits on PBS, of course.
Sure.
And Austin is a city that 30 years ago was struggling. And this music series called Austin City Limits was key to improving people's sense of identity about the city, to taking the rough edges and turning them into smooth edges. And it also dramatically improved other people outside of Austin's ideas about the city. So I think WJCT should start something called the Duval County line and do the same for Duval County.
Yeah, certainly Austin now known as the small city with a giant +1 guest list because of its music scene. And there is a lot of music in this city. I want to ask you a little bit about food because, culinarily, a lot of cities lean on that for part of their identity. Some cities sort of have it in their, like New Orleans, there really is a cuisine that is attached culturally to the place. Other places have it more, imported or created from the ground up as they go. Jacksonville has a lot of, specific dishes that belong to this place. Mayport shrimp is one, certainly, but there's daddle peppers. There's foods that are associated with this place, like camel riders, or honey drippers. I mean, so there's sort of, elements of that. Is there enough strength to a culinary hook to kind of build part of that reputation on?
Well, we must nurture that. There's a lot of great things going on in the culinary community. Would say, conversely, that it's very difficult at this point to build a reputation, first and foremost, about being a culinary place. I think we can leverage it and we can nurture it and make it outstanding as it is, but it's hard to distinguish against some of the markets that are a little ahead of us there. It's not to say it can't happen, but it may not be, tip of the iceberg for us in terms of the storytelling at this point.
I will say, let me just jump in because I've lived and worked all over the world. You mentioned Mayport shrimp. It is the best shrimp in the world, period. And trust me, I've had shrimp on every single continent. Daddle peppers, I didn't even know they were from Jacksonville. And I think that is emblematic of part of our challenge and our opportunity is to promote these things that we have here that are spectacular. So you've probably seen in the news that the Culinary Institute is thinking about coming to Jacksonville. This would be a huge home run. This is a good example of something that the Civic Council will be, trying to facilitate. And we're kind of the underdog. I like being the underdog.
Yeah.
We've got a call from Sean in Riverside. Good morning, Sean. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me. I was just listening to some of the comments about how Jacksonville's identity kind of just what the goal is, and I think speaking from a young person's perspective, I just moved back here. I've been here kind of twice. But 2018, I moved away and I lived in Austin, Texas. I lived in LA and Charlotte, North Carolina, and I come back, and what I really like to see is kind of where I live now in Riverside is kind of an emulation of that, but a little bit further away. When I think of downtown Jacksonville, it's not some place that I really like to go. It doesn't really have anything that appeals to me, and I'm not kind of want to see what it is in other cities, but I think Riverside is a great example of what this city could be. When people say where I think of Riverside as downtown,
Yeah.
honestly, and it's kind of crazy when I just go right across the bridge, right across the river, and it's a complete 360. It does nothing looks the same.
Yeah.
And I think building on that will attract a lot of people because I think almost everyone, I know a lot of friends and I know a lot of people here, they want to move to the Riverside area whenever they visit. That's kind of what their idea of what Jacksonville is. It's like a great place to live.
Yeah.
But then you go to other parts of the city, I think the city's just way too fragmented. I think that's just too many identities.
Thanks, Sean. I want to ask about that because there are pockets of neighborhoods that are very appealing to people. And, but downtown Jacksonville, I think in a lot of ways still really doesn't have an identifiable downtown characteristic. And a lot of the cities that have been successful in creating identities don't have that problem. They don't have this giant footprint of a city that they're trying to shoehorn into, something that is memorable and iconic. We have a downtown that is really still in many ways a lot of vacant spaces. And how do you overcome that particular challenge when people come to Jacksonville and they experience a downtown that is not full of shops, it is not full of restaurants, it is not full of activities?
I think it's critical that we keep up the momentum downtown. There's no great city in the U.S. or in the world that doesn't have a vibrant downtown. But the good news is things are happening. River's Edge just opened this amazing park. Riverfront Plaza is about to open where the landing was. I think this Friday is the ribbon cutting. Gateway and some of the other developers are breaking ground on some amazing new apartments and retail, and hopefully music will be coming. The Four Seasons is well on its way to completion, the stadium. So there's lots of great things going on downtown. I live in Riverside, so I love Riverside, and I have 5 Points. I love being there, and I can see how that's developing. But we can't take our eye off downtown. It's critical.
Cities grow out before they grow back in, and I think what you see is that's happening now. And if Sean can just be patient, I think downtown's coming, and I think people might snicker at that because we've been saying it a long time. But everything Dennis just mentioned is true. Consolidation was tricky for us. It was so many benefits, but yet it spread influence and resources far and wide. And so what suffered was downtown. But what you see is, again, a lot of investment and a lot of focus on making downtown vibrant. So we want it to be central to this story. It has to be.
Yeah. Well, it is a fascinating endeavor that you all are undertaking. As we mentioned, we have a link to the survey on our website, and it's on the Jacksonville Civic Council website as well. We look forward to hearing back from you when you have some results. But thanks so much for being on here today. Will Ketchum, Dennis Whittle, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
us.
All right. Thanks for listening. Up next, we're going to be celebrating a season of sobriety. We talked to two experts on keeping the holiday spirit without holiday spirits. Welcome back. Well, it is the 2nd of December and a key time for many trying to balance sober living with what can be a season of high pressure festivity. Here to talk about the challenges and strategies for the days and weeks ahead, we're joined by Nick Padlow. He's an Army combat veteran and the CEO of Sophros Recovery in Jacksonville. Nick, good morning.
Good morning.
We're also joined via video by Tracy.com Collins, former Florida Times Union columnist, WJXT morning show segment host, and author of the memoir Stumbling into Sobriety. Tracy, good to see you.
Good to see you, Anne. I was so excited to hear from you yesterday. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm so glad that you were able to join us. You're joining us from Arizona, we should say. So thanks for jumping 2 time zones. It has been several years of sobriety for you, I think, since March of 2017.
Yes, 8 years, 8.5 years now.
Congratulations, first of all. That is a
Thank you.
remarkable accomplishment. How are the holidays? What are they like? How are they different, if they are at all for you?
Well, I remember them now. That's the main thing. So I have to say that when I remember people getting sober in my life long before me and saying, oh my gosh, it's so great. And I would think, is it? Is it? And I can tell you 100%, it is a game changer. For me personally, because I had gotten to the point where I was drinking to black out and pass out every single day. And I was a high functioning alcoholic. I would enough makeup and hairspray, and I was able to go on air the next morning, every morning. And many people had no idea this was going on behind the scenes. And I can tell you that when I finally made the decision, it was like being released from prison. It was a prison of my own doing, but it's something that I will never go back to. And gratefully, in terms of the holidays, there is a whole movement with the alcohol companies understanding that more and more people are wanting this non-alcoholic option. So you've got everything from zero Guinness to we've got free wines that come in all flavors, including for New Year's. They make champagne that's alcohol free. And then there's also the hard liquors. And what it does is it mimics the scent and the flavor without the alcohol. And so you don't have to feel like you're being left out at any time. It is a slippery slope, though, because I will tell you that there are some people who can't even smell a rum cake that has had all of the actual rum baked out of it without having a reaction to it. So it's different for everybody. But in my world, that it gives me the option to celebrate like everybody else, but not have the bad results.
Yeah. Nick, tell us about that. I mean, what Tracy points out is there are a lot of alternatives now when it comes to particularly beverages, alcoholic beverages, but that isn't necessarily a fail-safe. To her point, that can be something that can even be triggering for people if they're feeling like they're drinking, that could be in some ways giving them maybe a false sense of comfort. Will you talk a little bit about your experience in dealing with holidays, what kinds of challenges those presented to you, especially the first few years of your sobriety?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest challenge with holidays was the time off and the isolation. My family wasn't one where all the gatherings were centered around alcohol. I was lucky in that regard. I had a lot of support. But for me, it's when I'm left to my own devices, when I have time off, when I have isolation, when I have this moment of I can do this and no one's going to know and I'm not going to hurt anyone but myself, I can go to really dark places. And so learning how to say, okay, I need to thoughtfully and mindfully fill that time. I need to do things that are healthy for me. And rest might be one of those things. But for me, it could be rest all day. And then I'm isolating and my mental health starts to struggle. So what are the things that I can put into place? How can I really schedule out my day so that I've got a meeting, so that I've got a gym time, so that I've got time to reach out and have connection with other people, as opposed to kind of going inward and isolating? That was my own experience. Other people struggle with different things in the holidays, but I think that the consistent theme is that these things are outside of our normal schedule and they throw us off, whether that's more time with family or more time by yourself or time off work. All these things throw us off of our normal schedule, which hopefully by now we've designed in such a way to keep us happy and healthy. And so now that's taken out from us and we don't know what to do. I didn't know what to do.
And so, the counseling work that you do, are the people that you advise, are they looking for similar solutions, ideas, or do they present with different sets of challenges in their own experience of the holidays?
I mean, everyone presents with different sets of challenges. I think the one commonality that we work on at Soft First Recovery is like, how do we build a toolkit of things so that you have something to go to when life gets hard or when the holidays get hard? And so it's not any one thing. It's not, non-alcoholic drinks, as she mentioned, might be a solution. And we also need to have an exit plan. And I also need to have my mindfulness. And if unhealthy thoughts start to come up, I need to learn how to reframe those in a healthy way. So when life throws something at me, if I'm building a house and I have a hammer, that's a great tool, but I'm also going to need a level and a broom and a saw. And I need to have all these tools at my disposal because just like a housing project, life is going to throw different stuff at us, especially around the holidays.
Yeah. And Tracy, I mean, one of the things about the holidays is while there's sort of all of this festivity, there's also all of these opportunities for enormous tension. And, some of that can be family, some of that can be expectations that aren't met. Some of it can just be the stressors of, like Nick said, sort of not being in a structured work environment. You're just at loose ends. How do you plan for that? And how do you, in the work that you've done, helping other people, counsel them?
So the 12 steps are the first place to start because most people, including myself, did not understand why we were doing the things that we were doing. It's sort of a mystery. And so I got into a good 12-step program. And just like Nick talked about, it provides the tools so that when triggers do come up, and you make a really good point about expectations. We learn very fast in recovery that you are only responsible for your side of the street. And so we create these tools that you ask yourself these questions that create a better way to live life. And I don't care if your addiction is alcohol or if it's you're addicted to the drama, the 12 steps program is a great place for you to get those tools that you can reference back. And then you also should have a support system, like many AA programs provide a good support system. Obviously, Nick's recovery program provides a good support system. And that way you have somebody who really understands the backside of what we're going through to help you kind of walk through those things. I have a sponsor that I talk to, and we work through some of the things that are bothering me. And sometimes I just need to, I like to say that throw up, it'll make you feel better. I like to throw up my baggage to my sponsor, and then I feel better. I don't even need a solution. I just need somebody who understands my brain, my alcoholic brain.
Yeah. And we should say we have a note on Facebook from Stacy saying, I loved Tracy's book, such a great, relatable read. That's your book, of course, Stumbling into Sobriety. I wanted to ask you, because I know early on when you were going through this, you would sometimes refer to kind of going back to your why. And you had made a video of yourself that you would watch or at least think about when you were feeling vulnerable. Is that something that you still do? Can you kind of remind us of what that was and what purpose it served?
Sure. It was right before I got sober. I oftentimes would have to look back at my pictures from the previous night to see what had even happened. And in this one particular video, I was drunk and I was talking to myself on this video and sort of just contemplating my life. And I included part of that in my video that I created to promote the book. And it's you get to see a completely different side of me, and one that when I shared it at my 50th birthday party, it caused a lot of tears because there were a lot of people who felt really close to me and then realized they didn't really know me at all. I had a lot of people say, I'm so sorry if I would have known. And I'm like, it wasn't your journey to walk, it was mine to walk. And by writing the book, it was that my pain became my purpose. And the purpose was to help other people, specifically single, successful women who thought, why am I like this? Nobody else out there is like me. And I've come to find out in a very short time that there were a lot of single, successful women who were exactly like me. And because there was no accountability with children or spouse or anything, just like Nick said, isolation was my worst enemy. And now it's my best friend. I love my time alone.
We have a message from Jerry from St. Augustine saying sober and 12 steps work. Nick, you are a veteran yourself. You've experienced some of the hardships that go along with being someone who served in a combat role, and you help people who are also in that same position. Is there anything special about the holidays for people who have served and who are experiencing some of the mental health issues that often are tied to substance abuse?
I mean, I think that the things that affect veterans, whether it's during the holidays or not, are pretty consistent. What I think is what we see is you have more time to think, you have more tension and more drama. And so these things, these kind of unhealthy patterns start to come up. And I think one of the things for me was always, who am I now that I'm no longer in uniform? What is my new identity? How do I fit in? And so when you start to be around a bunch of civilians in your family, that gets exacerbated because you feel this sense of not fitting in potentially, right? Or you see everyone happy and you're struggling with post-traumatic stress. And so it's, why am I not happy? And so everything just seems to have more contrast. All of these struggles that I'm having, now they seem exacerbated and they're really in my face. And so, what we always tell people is that, there are a million reasons over the holidays not to do anything about your struggles. I've got family coming in town. I've got this, I've got that. I can't prioritize myself. I can't get to a meeting. I can't go to treatment. Whatever those things are, there's so many more reasons to do it, right? During the holidays, we actually do have a little bit of time, right? We do have these moments with our family where we can connect and be vulnerable. And also, there's going to be a lot of other holidays. And what a blessing to be able to give your family to say, hey, I need to sit this Thanksgiving out. I need to sit a couple of days out this Christmas because I need to go to a meeting. I need to leave for an hour and go to a meeting. And then now I'm healthier for them for the rest of their lives, for the rest of my life. And so that gift, maybe it takes a little bit away from this holiday because I have to focus on myself. And at the same time, the gift that I'm giving them is this gift of sobriety, which, I think my family values more than anything.
It's a great way to think of the holidays as not something to be dreaded, but as an opportunity for people who are in that. So I think we'll leave it on that thought. But it's great to talk to both of you. Congratulations both for all the work that you've done, Nick Padlow, Tracy.com Collins. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Up next, local podcasters unite for an annual charity and networking event.
It's Shabbos, baby.
Prepare for the funniest Shabbat dinner ever. Bad Shabbos is a fast-paced, wildly entertaining comedy where faith, family, and farce collide. Join us on Tuesday, December 9th. Tickets and info at wjct.org/film.
Tidbits, family owned and operated since 1985. 4 locations, Bay Meadows, Hendricks, Mandarin, and now Fleming Island. Menu items include fresh sandwiches, salads, and soups. Open Monday through Saturday. Online ordering and menu at clarastidbits.com.
The American Educational Research Association has a big annual conference. And what are they researching? Well, a recent analysis found that the vast majority of presentations were about things like resistance, safe spaces, and identity. But teachers want research on discipline, parental involvement, and mental health. How the gap between what researchers want to study and what teachers actually need is hurting education overall. That's on the next On Point.
Today at 11 on WJCT News 89.9.
The First Amendment, protecting the right to free speech and a free press in the U.S., came first for a reason. The founders saw it as a critical protection from the government. It was a bold declaration that set the young republic apart. Today, we ask you to make your own declaration. Stand up for a free press by donating to this NPR station. Thank you.
When the Senate ended the government shutdown, it came with a promise, a vote this month on extending the ACA subsidies set to expire at year's end. But healthcare costs were already rising fast and could spike even more if Congress doesn't act. Families, hospitals, and state budgets would all feel the strain. The impact on our physical and financial health. Next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, it's very easy to hear podcasts these days, but connecting to other podcasters sometimes is a little bit of work. Here to talk about the third annual Podathon, we are joined by Tom Rossi. He's the co-founder of Higher Pixels, which makes a podcast hosting company called Buzzsprout. Tom, great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
We're also joined by Blythe Milligan. She's the co-founder of Jack Podcasters United and host of Everything is Logistics. Blythe, nice to see you again.
Thank you for having us.
So, Blythe, there are a lot of podcasts out there. No surprise to you. It does seem like sometimes there's just a sea of podcasts. Do you still encourage people to step into the world of podcasting?
Oh, 100%, because the overwhelming majority of podcasts never make it past 10 episodes. And so what the JPU, the Jack's Podcasters United group, is really there to encourage is those in-person meetings to facilitate those conversations, to keep people going, to remove the fear of equipment, the fear of perfection, so that they can keep going to determine their own personal ROI. It could be, getting new business. It could be speaking at conferences. It could be a variety of things, even just talking about some of your favorite hobbies. But all of those different podcasters have different ROI in mind, and we want to keep that motivation going.
Tom, what are some of the obstacles that podcasters encounter? Are they mostly technical? And how does your company help kind of surmount some of those challenges?
Sure. I think when you start your podcast, it's technical, right? So you're trying to figure out microphones, things like that. That can be intimidating. But once you get started, really what Blythe is talking about is the challenge for keeping podcasting, which is keeping the motivation, because it takes work to build an audience. And it doesn't happen overnight. You've got to continue to kind of that grind of publishing episodes and staying on top of your content. So what we do is we try to remove any opportunity that we have to remove some of the pain associated with editing your episode, for mastering it. We do things with AI to help with helping put together episode descriptions, things like that, to help kind of, let them do the thing that's most fun, which is being behind the microphone, not all the stuff that comes after it. And one of the other things that we do is support things like the Podathon, because this is such an incredible opportunity for podcasters to be with other podcasters. It's a surprisingly lonely thing to be a podcaster. You're behind the microphone. You don't, even though you might interview people and talk to them, you just kind of feel like you're speaking into the void. And so by getting podcasters together at something like Podathon, you get to talk to other podcasters that are in the same boat. You get to encourage one another, and you get to get ideas for new things that you can try, different ways that you could take advantage of your podcasting audience, like different directions you might be able to go with providing them new content or monetization, getting value out of your podcast. So that's one of the other things that we do, is just support things like Podathon.
And so the Podathon is sort of a networking event and an opportunity to hash out some issues and some problems. It is hard, though, to break through. And there's been a kind of this whole huge celebrity podcast thing that has dominated a lot of the market, and there's so many being produced. So how do you encourage people that there is an opportunity, an avenue for them to get their voices heard, to get their programs to a larger audience?
Well, we really want to push sort of the passion behind being a podcaster because you have a unique passion for whatever topic that you're discussing. And for a lot of celebrity podcasts, they kind of start off strong, but then they just fade away because it's not really their medium and they're not really dedicated to it like traditional podcasters are. And so it's still a medium that has some discoverability issues, but at an event like Podathon, that's where we are encouraging, the marketing, the legal aspect, the tax strategies, all of that. You're running a business, even though it's a podcast, you're running a business. And so how do we continue to support and facilitate that growth within our members and within our community? Because there's a variety of different topics that are discussed, but there's different paths on getting to that successful place.
And the celebrity podcasters also have brought in tons of new podcast listeners. So it really is a good thing for podcasters across the board that these, celebrities, they already have a following. They already have an audience. So if they launch a podcast out of the gate, they're going to have all these people that are listening to them. But what's great for other podcasters is when somebody gets into podcasting, they typically don't listen to just one podcast. Once they get into podcasting, they start using it as a medium for all kinds of things that they want to learn about, or audience or other people that are, fans of the same things that they're fans of, or, there's so many different ways for people to connect with other podcasters. So I think the celebrity podcasters has actually really helped podcasting in general because more people come into podcasting as a result.
Sure. And obviously this event helps people learn more about other podcasters in the area, other podcasts that are available. And this is the third that you've held. This again is at Ruby Beach Brewing.
Yes,
on
Ruby Beach Brewing.
Forsyth next Wednesday.
Yes, next Wednesday starts at 5:30. We have networking, we have education, so it's not just networking and conversing with other people, but you're going to be learning something at the event too, and raising money for Feeding Northeast Florida.
All right. Well, Blythe Milligan, Tom Rossi, thank you so much for being here. We've got a link on our website to the event, and you can also go to jackspodcastersunited.com. Great to see you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
All right, and that's our program. Thanks for listening. Just a reminder, it's Giving Tuesday. Please don't forget about us here at WJCT. You can donate by heading to wjct.org/donate. And while you are there, you can skate on over to firstcoastconnect.org. You can sign up there for our new newsletter, which gives you show news, including a breakdown of upcoming guests and topics delivered to your inbox every weekday. Join us tomorrow when we preview an upcoming gallery brunch hop featuring art, holiday gifts, and maybe even the occasional mimosa. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com.
Cavendish Partners PA is dedicated to serving companies across Northeast Florida with legal